Hello, everybody. We're here, ready to go. All right. And we have a question from Larry up front. Larry says, hello. Hello, Larry. Can you explain the mouthpiece placement exercise? Place the mouthpiece on the buzzing lips. My buzz stops when placing the mouthpiece on the lips. And that is part of the problem, isn't it? You have to place it very gently and very specifically. So let me get my mouthpiece. All right, so the idea is that the lips continue to vibrate, so you have to place it. You can't pound the thing on your face because the lips will stop vibrating. So here's the lip buzz. Okay, so the idea is that your embouchure shape, what I like to call the posture of the lips. The posture of the lips needs to stay the same as what you do for the buzz. Now, I originally made this exercise up. Now, I understand someone else probably got there before I did. That's fine. I still made it up. There are two different kinds of creativity. There's the creativity where you come up with something original that nobody else ever came up with. And then there's creativity where you come up with something that people have come up with. Most of us fall in that second category. I do believe there are some things that I've come up with that were genuinely original. This is not one of them. But I didn't know, I had never heard of it before. I had braces students. And that's what I had them do. Originally, this was not part of the routine. It was just something I did with the braces students. But the more I worked with braces students, the more I realized we need this. You know, the rest of us need this. It's not just for so that's when I started including it in the routine. But yes, so it's a little bit difficult with the mustache because I have to like part the hair. And the whole idea is to keep the mouth in that position. Keep that posture. Hello, David. Yeah, so there is a video on YouTube. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, okay, let me grab that. Okay, I'll put the link here. So if you ever need a demonstration, the demonstration is on there. And I believe, yes, look, I'm clean shaven in that. So If you need a demonstration without the beard, that's where you're gonna find it on that at that link. So, all right, good to start off with a question. Any other questions? I didn't think I would have an opportunity today to do this, but it turns out that all my gigs, with the exception of one, ended up last week. They ended up being uh, done and over with. Hello, Free. Free says, "Hi, Eddie. What about you? How are you?" I'm fine. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing great. Thank you. Um, had dialysis, did some shopping, came home, had lunch, and then I had a short dialysis nap. Sometimes the dialysis makes me very sleepy, and that's why this is the way it is, because I was laying down. But yeah, things are going great. I did manage to make. I've got this massive project I'm working on, and it involves recordings. And I was able to make, let me see, 12 recordings yesterday. Um, any gigs or recordings? So I have a gig tomorrow night at a Methodist church in Conroe, and basically doing what's it called? Let me see, festive suite or something like that. It's a famous arrangement of Christmas music. Let me check my. I have the exact wording right here. Let's see. Where is it? Where is it? Band charts. And here we go. Many Moods of Christmas. That's what it's called. Many Moods of Christmas. And we're doing the suite number 1, suite number 2, and suite number 4. Must be a very short concert because the rehearsal itself was only an hour and a half. Larry says, "Now your hair is going to catch on as the Eddie Lewis look." That wouldn't be the first time something like that happened. And I'm not taking any credit for anything, but there are things that I've done over the past that you just have to wonder, because a lot of that stuff, it looks like chronologically that I was doing it before anyone else was doing it. I don't think that's unusual for an INTP, really. But speaking of INTP, you know what? No, the one trait that will help you recognize an INTP right away is the hair. And if you see photos of me from the past, I'm better now at keeping my hair up. Maybe not in this case. Um, I'm a lot better now. I get my hair cut when it should get cut and stuff like that. But yes, one of the things, if you look back at family photos and stuff like that, my hair has always been a big blob on my head. Um, and that's a trait of the INTP. I don't use it as an excuse. You know, a lot of people, that's how they do the personality stuff. They use it as an excuse for bad behavior. That's not good. Oh, I'm an INTP, therefore I can go around looking like a slob. No, that's not all right. It's just not all right. And yet here I am. So anyway, any other questions? Excuse me? Any other questions? All right, no questions. So yes, the church gig is tomorrow. At this point, that might be it for now. I thought I was going to get more. Benefits of rest for taking the day off. The original idea was that um, treating the muscles the same way you would treat the muscles for working out. That's where that originally came from. Now I think there's a whole bunch more benefits besides just growing your muscle strength. Um, one thing, if you're a muscle-based player instead of a inflammation-based. Now let's be clear about this. Taking a day off does not work for inflammation-based embouchures. If you take a day off as an inflammation-based embouchure, then all those things that you hear about trumpet players taking days off, all of it becomes true. And this is not to say that it's bad to have an inflammation-based embouchure. It's just this is how it is. That's just how it is. Okay. So, but there are other, if you're a muscle-based player, there are other benefits. And one of the benefits is that you will lose the inflammation. So if you, um, what we want is to be able to do everything that we do without any inflammation whatsoever. I have told you guys, and this is all thanks to you too, guys. Okay, this is thanks to you. I didn't used to say this, but so many of you have said, I think I'm a inflammation player. I don't think you're an inflammation player. Now, I'm talking about the ones that I've worked with, because as you guys know, most of you have either been students in the past or you're students now. Um, and there are some of you that say, well, Mr. Lewis, I think I'm a inflammation-based player. I have to clarify that just because you're a muscle-based player doesn't mean you don't get inflammation. And it doesn't mean that you can't benefit from the inflammation. You can benefit from some inflammation. It'll give you a little bit more endurance and it'll give you a little bit more range. And so for me, the definition of an inflammation-based player is someone who has to have inflammation to play. And how do I even know about this? That's how I used to play. My warm-up in the morning was the process of getting swollen up enough so that I could play. If I warmed up too much, I couldn't play anymore because I was too swollen. And that was my whole trumpet life. And playing high was a matter of pushing harder. And what I changed was that most of my playing is um, based on just the muscle. After a long day, yes, I get swollen. And yes, that swelling can help me get through a long, long, long gig. But no, um, it's not something I want. It's not something I need. Um, so, so the biggest benefit is the strength that you get from taking time off. But I also think that there's a mental benefit. People who have to keep practicing, the way they play the trumpet is different. You know, if you have the confidence to say, and it's sort of like the way we have relationships, and I know this, what I'm about to say is going to sound kind of abusive, um, but the way, you know how we say that if you seem desperate, if you seem desperate, then the chick isn't going to like you, right? If you seem desperate, that girl is not going to be your girlfriend. And people can read that kind of desperation from a mile away. It's the same thing with sales. If you're desperate to make a sale, you're not going to make a sale because they can tell. So it's not just boyfriend, girlfriend, it's all relationships. And so if you can behave as if you don't need that person, that's the abusive part. That's the abusive part, right? We don't want to be a bad person. So, but I'm talking about how human nature is. Um, that's why a lot of people have, like, for their lessons, they have um, what do you call them? Waiting lists. They put you on a waiting list. Um, and I think that the real reason for that is not because they have a full schedule. The real reason is they're manipulating you to make you feel like you need this person as your teacher. I don't play those games. I don't have a waiting list. If there's no room in my schedule, there's no room in my schedule. But you get my point, right? Um, Now, that benefit, let's call it a benefit, that benefit goes both ways. So, what am I talking about? The person who is behaving aloof, that person benefits from um, you wanting to be with that person. This is like the whole celebrity thing. Now, it's a benefit for the person. So why am I talking about that? It's because you can behave that way with your horn. You can tell your instrument, no, you don't get every day of my life. You don't get to have that. Some of those days are for me. Some of those days are for my family. Some of those days are for my church. You, Mr. Trumpet, you don't get every day of my life. When you can do that to the trumpet, things change mentally for you and for your trumpet playing. When you can stand up and say, no, Mr. Trumpet, you don't get that much of my time. It puts, you know how they always talk and they laugh about it. It's not funny. They say, Some days the trumpet wins, some days I win, right? And there's all kinds of sayings like that. Sayings like, you know, uh, if you don't practice every day, blah, 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 blah. Well, all of that turns the trumpet into a psychological entity. And when you say, no, no, I won't practice every day, that that trumpet doesn't get every day of my time, then you are the one in control and you will win every single time. The only reason you lost before was because you let the trumpet win. Never, ever, ever let the trumpet win. Okay? Do not let the trumpet win. Stick it in that closet, in the case, in the closet, and go have a good time. Then the trumpet won and lost again. Every time you put the trumpet in its place, you win and the trumpet loses. All right, I'm a little late on my questions. Let me see. Free says, have you ever had problems with metal allergy? I had bad months and now I'm switching to a gold rim. Yes, I have. I had a mouthpiece about 35 years ago that the silver had worn off and it was brass. And I was getting marks on my lips and other symptoms that I can't remember right now. I was certain that it was a brass allergy. Now, there's people that say there's no such thing as a brass allergy. Well, when you have that stuff, you don't worry about what people think. you you do something about it. But yes, I have had it had that, and I think that was the only time I ever had a gold mouthpiece was after that experience. Now, silver is supposed to be just as innate as gold, I think, or maybe there's a skill, but it's innate enough that you shouldn't have any reaction to silver. But the silver can get worn off. David says, I am playing a solo in the Wind Symphony that calls for a harmony mute. My mute without stem makes me inaudible in the group. Suggestions. Um, you can put the stem back in. If it's a classical piece, it probably means to have the stem inside of it. But that might also not be loud enough. I don't think there's anything wrong with changing to a different mute. But yes, try with the stem in first. I think unless it says stem out, it doesn't mean stem out. In a classical piece of music, when we say harmony mute includes the stem. Now, if it's a jazz piece arranged for the wind orchestra, um, then yeah, that's something different. And still, even then, going to a straight mute is fine, I think. Hello, Nathan. Nathan says, in one of your previous Q and A, you mentioned you blow an object, you call it a spitball, through your trumpet after each time you play your trumpet. I don't do it after each time. Is this a kit you buy or something you made? No, this is something you buy in the store. I'll grab one so you can see it. Here's an unopened bottle. I don't make any money off of, so this, nobody's paid me ever for any advertising for anything, especially not spitballs. And be warned that a lot of teachers and players and so forth don't like spitballs. I actually sometimes I wonder if I didn't lose a student, a little girl, and she was too little to get the sponge all the way through, and then she tried to play on it, and it got caught in the valves, and the father took the the instrument to the repair shop to get it fixed. And they said, "Oh, we don't like these. These are terrible. This always happens." Blah 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 blah. Um, People all over the world are using these things. It's not terrible. It's not. You just have to be careful. If you don't have the strength to blow it all the way through, don't use it. And I always rinse afterwards. That's not part of the instructions, but I always rinse my horn out with water afterwards. That way, because every time you use one, bits of the sponge come off. And we don't want that inside a horn. I've got a weird thing in my eye. So yes, that's what that is. It's called spitballs. Should be, I don't know, $4 or $5 a bottle now. I didn't pay that much because it was before COVID when I bought a bunch of these. I'm glad I did. I'm saving money. All right. All right. I wonder what this is. Okay. Next question. Kevin. Hello, Kevin. He says, "Hi, Mr. Lewis and everyone. I'm doing this on my phone and need to do some driving in a few minutes, so might not be as interactive as sometimes, but will be listening." Okay, nice to have you with us again. All right. Hello, Forge. What is the pros and cons of a shallow mouthpiece versus deeper cut mouthpiece? The shallow mouthpiece gives you brighter sound. That's it. That's the only pro. And that pro is a con if you're playing in a situation where you don't want a brighter sound. So the deeper cup. So for example, look at how deep. This is the mouthpiece I played on last night. I told you guys that I never play this mouthpiece on a gig. I've except for like uh, a duo gig or something, or if I'm playing by myself. But last night I decided I'm gonna go for it because the orchestra wasn't real loud. This is how deep my mouthpiece is that I played on last night. This is the mouthpiece I practice on. Let me grab my other mouthpieces. So on most gigs, I have 4 mouthpieces on me so that I can pick the right mouthpiece for the gig. And here is my most shallow mouthpiece. I'm going to put them together so you can see. So look how far that goes in. Look how far that doesn't go in. You can see most of my fingernail. Okay. Um, let's look at it this way. Okay. Most gigs. So, like for example, last week I had 5 gigs, maybe 6, if I include rehearsals. Um, every gig I had last week was on the shallow mouthpiece. That's what's normal. The only reason, as I said, the only reason I used this mouthpiece last night is on the orchestra thing is because it sounded like it fit properly. I could have gone to something more of a C cup, but this actually fit with that orchestra. So, yeah, I've got this weird thing in my eye. All right, let's see here. So yeah, all that changes is how bright the sound is. Now I haven't played today, but I'll play a Super C for you, and you can hear the difference. The the deep mouthpiece, the shallow mouthpiece, doesn't give you higher notes. That's a myth. I'm gonna play on my big bathtub mouthpiece first. This is without a warm up. Okay. Now I'll play on the shallow mouthpiece. Now you see that the second one, the Super C, sounded better. It had more core to the sound. It wasn't dull. The big fat mouthpiece, you can still get those high notes, but it's got a dull sound. And why would we not want to have a dull sound when we're playing those kind of notes? Because the rest of the band will bury you. The rest of the band will bury you. Nobody will hear those notes. You have to put a little bit of edge on it. And then the what goes along with that is that if you don't have any edge, you're gonna lose all of your endurance because you're gonna overblow because you won't even be able to hear yourself. You won't even be able to hear yourself. So you end up overblowing, and that overblowing saps up all of your endurance. It's not a good scenario. Yeah, Wynton Marsalis, this is Larry. Wynton Marsalis said that he didn't miss a day for something like 7 years. I'm sure it was longer than that. You know, I'm pretty much the only one preaching this about. I'm not the only one, but statistically speaking, you know how they say it's not statistically relevant, right? How many other people there are that tell you it's not good to practice every day? Um, it's not statistically relevant. It's practically that I am the only one teaching all of that. But I have my reasons for it, and I have evidence that I'm right. Now, my wife has a different angle on that. She says if she was a trumpet player, she would practice every day just for the mental aspect of it. That doing something every day and being diligent at doing it every day is good for your mental state. And I agree with that, but I'll do that with something else. Thank you very much. Not with the trumpet. Foot Footfault says Bob Reeves makes some great mouth pieces that have a big core and still project well when playing higher. I believe that. I'm sure that there are technical advances that. Hello, Jeffrey. I'm sure there are some things like that. Um, I would have to work with somebody like individually to find something like that. So I have been able to, because I have a Warburton kit, I have been able to experiment with the backbore and what kind of difference that makes. Um, it's not the difference I had expected. I think the biggest thing that changes in the backbore is the intonation. I think that's the biggest change is that intonation. And what do I mean by intonation? Um, the squishing of the octave or the expanding of the octave, so that if you if you have and I'm not saying that certain backbores produce squishing and other backbores produce. No, I think it's the combination of the backbore and the cup will either squish the octave or expand it. Footfault says, I think you have to get a BB and top price that are matched. Not all BBs will sound or work great with any top. That's right. Oh, backboard. You're talking about backboard. I don't know what my head was. Um, Free says Marcellus had better chops when he was younger. Um, yeah, I think first of all, I think that happens to everybody. I think that happens to everybody, and the chops that he had, even though I liked it and I liked it a lot, the chops he had weren't as functional. So, like when you compared how he played, and this is not a, like I said, I had more, when I was growing up, I had more Wynton Marsalis albums than any other artist, jazz or otherwise. So don't take this as a criticism of Wynton. I've always wanted to have certain elements of Wynton's playing in my playing. And for in some regards, I accomplished that. Um, so I'm not criticizing, but um, if you compare the chops he had that on the surface seemed like they were had more chops than um, like Freddie Hubbard or Woody Shaw. The chops he had weren't as functional jazz wise. They were just, and that's why some people criticized them. I never did. Some people criticized them as having too much chops. Um, People like Miles Davis didn't like the way he played, even though it sounded like a imitation of Miles, that style that he did. Yeah, chops get better and stronger when playing live gigs. When I practice at home consistently, it's nothing like when playing gigs for 5 days a week, in my opinion. I think there's an element of that that has truth to it. But we can't forget about those people that took time off and made changes and came out better, right? So there is that. So, but I do believe that playing gigs is better than practicing. Oh, I didn't know he played a 1 1/4 mouthpiece. So I can tell you, the style of music that he plays today is not what I would spend my time listening to. And that's not a criticism. Once again, I like Wynton. I mean, his music. I don't know Wynton personally. I have friends that know him personally. Um, but yeah, I like his playing overall. But I enjoyed those earlier recordings. Um, all the way up to my favorite albums were all the way up. Everything he did, including the Clark, the stuff with the drummer, the Jazz Messengers, Art Blakey. So all of that stuff, I like all of it, and I enjoy. I think what I enjoy more than his playing are the tunes. And he stopped playing tunes like that. I have suspicions about why, but I won't share those. But I do have suspicions about why he went after Black Coats. I love everything from the beginning all the way up to Black Coats. Um, and then after that, he started going in a more traditional route, and I don't blame him for that. But for me to listen, I enjoy listening to the more, I guess we could say, modern stuff. I enjoy that more. I'm not a big fan of recreating what was already done. And I know that's not what he claims to do with, you know, but it's too close. I would rather, this is coming out like a criticism, isn't it? And I don't want to do that, so I'll just shut my mouth up. Footfault says Dave Douglas as well. Huge Bach 3Bs, super deep piece. Well, my mouthpieces are both bigger than my mouthpieces are bigger diameter wise than both of what you're talking about there. Yeah. So anyway, any other questions? Any other questions? I think that that's actually happening. Footfault says, "Have you tinkered with lead pipes?" Yes, I have, and it was a big mistake. I have a student that just bought a 43 trumpet, Buck 43, and I told him I used to have one, but I ruined it. I changed the bill, I changed the lead pipe, I changed this, I changed that, and I pretty much made it unplayable. And after that experience, I decided from now on, I want my horn to work properly when I buy it. So I used to have an over under lead pipe, and this is the one I actually put on that trumpet. It had let me show you. I can share the screen. Okay, I'm going to share screen real quick. Oh, I got to put this up there. Let me put it up there. Okay. I used to have a mouthpiece on that trumpet. I mean, not a mouthpiece, a lead pipe. So let's say that's the lead pipe. And then there's like a lip up and a lip down. Not to scale, by the way. And the tubing that went into that. And the idea was to remove, same for yes, this was a very, very strange, I don't remember who made it. It was a very strange lead pipe setup. And the idea was that it took away the interruption to the airflow. Now, I might have drawn it wrong. Maybe it was more like this. You get my point. But yes, there was an over-under lip. And I'm sure it's a great mouthpiece. I mean, a great lead pipe, I'm sure. But it ruined that trumpet. Hello, Gary. Gary says, hey, Eddie, sometimes I struggle with overblowing and find it affects me negatively around the fourth line D or fourth space E flat. Stuff above and below is not affected. Any tips for avoiding this? I would say that to practice the tonalization studies at a higher volume, not forever. I don't mean forever, but do them at a higher volume, at least a volume that matches the volume that you're having with the overblowing. Remember, overblowing is relative. Overblowing is relative. The only time it actually becomes overblowing is when you lose control of your chops. You're blowing so true overblowing is when you blow so hard that you can't hold your chops in place. Okay? So that's what I would do is practice the tonalization studies, especially the chromatic tonalization studies. If you don't have access to any of the chromatic ones, because there's not much out there, you just take the same pattern and apply it to the chromatic scale. And you would do that. I didn't do the volume part of it, but you would do that at a yes, it is easy to overblow a shallow mouthpiece. That's something different though from what I'm talking about. So yes, I would do the chromatic tonalization studies at full volume. I can only assume, but my assumption is that what's happening to you is that as your lifts change for the higher frequencies, there's a change that's not happening. Like you're not going to that position fast enough or something of that nature. And that's where the overblowing can manifest is that the lips haven't like done what they're supposed to do because of the volume. All right. Any other questions? Any questions? I'll tell you something that's been on my mind. Oh, Footfall says, any thoughts on 3D printed newts? Oh, well, if it works, use it. Yeah, I don't have a problem with 3D printed newts. I not at all. Not at all. Um, the nice thing about 3D printing stuff is you can experiment with your own designs. And that's a good thing. Huh? We like that. You never know. You might come up with a design that other people want too. You know? Now, I understand most people just get plans off online. Haha. David says he's out. He says I was gonna share what's on my mind. I stopped taking gigs in 2023, and then I got well again, and I'm playing gigs again, and it reminded me before I got sick, I wanted to make a change in my performance career because, and this is gonna sound arrogant, right? This is gonna sound arrogant. I used to play with some heavy bands. And when those people in those bands died, the leaders died, and then the one guy fired me or ghosted me, it would be more appropriate. Um, and I went from playing these high level gigs to playing the same gigs everybody else is playing, which, and this is something that if that some guys might say, well, you're pretty arrogant. And yes, you could say I'm arrogant, but I was thinking back, even back then, so as far back as 2016, 2017, I already wanted to do my own thing, right? I already wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to um, put my own bands together. So the best thing that happened this past week was my band played at the church school, um, and it was great. I'm not saying it was great because everybody else said it was great. I'm saying it was great because it was great. It was our best performance in years and years and years. And it puts in my heart this desire to do more of my own stuff with my own bands. And so the part that I said was arrogant. I remember talking to a tuba player friend of mine, and he says, "How's your career going?" And I said, "Well, it's sort of like this is after I left all those great bands." And I said, I feel like a racehorse that's getting paid to do parades. You have a horse that's trained to do all this fast, 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 hard stuff. But you hire this horse to go clip, clop in a parade. And he thought that was a great analogy. It's actually quite arrogant. It really is. Um, it really is quite arrogant. The after going through the sickness and thinking about how what that means to the people I've been working with, it is a very arrogant way to express the frustrations I have. But what is that? The nature of that frustration? The nature of that frustration is that I'm overqualified for all of these gigs. You could have somebody just out of high school playing these gigs, and it wouldn't make any difference. I'm not contributing anything to the ensemble that somebody who is unqualified, and you know what I mean, who's doesn't have the experience, doesn't have the training, doesn't have all of that. I'm not contributing anything extra special because there's no avenue for that. There is no opportunity for that. You just go in there and so like let me give you an example. This band I played with on Saturday night, I love the people, I love the band leader, I like the pay. There's a lot of good things about it. But musically speaking, it's it comes up zero because of the volume of the band. When the band gets that loud, the trumpet playing goes down, and it's just a fact of life. And I'm not talking loud like orchestra loud. I'm talking loud as in everybody's turned up to 11, like that funny movie, right? Oh, my amplifier goes higher than yours. It's got an 11 on it. Well, these guys are all at 11 the whole time. They put me next to the drums, and I'm not just complaining about how loud it is. Don't get me wrong. I'm complaining about how it makes me suck. How playing like that makes me suck as a player, and it's frustrating. So let me see what David says. What is your band? So the band that that played this past week, uh, what is a jazz ensemble. We had trumpet, trombone, and tenor sax that also doubled on clarinet because we do some uh, uh, Dixieland stuff. And then the rhythm section is piano, bass, and drums. Great gig. Now it was a kiddie concert. We don't scale things down musically for any concert. It doesn't matter who's watching. In fact, I would say that we want all the best qualities for a kiddie concert. So, but I have other bands besides that. I've got a brass group. We just don't. These bands don't play enough gigs for me to turn down the other gigs. I hope that makes sense. Um, but that's where my heart is, and you know, the more I think about it, the more I want to play those kind of gigs at churches. I know that sounds weird, um, but the problem is I don't know how to make that happen. Footfall, I didn't see this. We have the freedom to do our own thing. Love this. Playing the same jazz, salsa, etc. gigs at the same restaurants, venues for years get robotic and repetitive. Breaks from that can boost creativity. Play shows instead of gigs. Footfault says, Eddie, really appreciate your insight. Don't change. Yeah, I don't think I can change. Jeffrey says, I've seen many bands that play too loud in small venues. Yes, it is a thing. That they play too loud in big venues. There's no reason. I'm sorry, there's no reason, no musical reason whatsoever to have stage volume at that that's that loud. There's no reason for it. Did we hang our pictures yet? What pictures are you talking about? Oh, the pictures from a while back. Yes. So the one of them you can see right here. It's on the other wall. And the other one is when you come in. So yes, they are hung. Um, I've got a new attitude now about gifts. You know that parable about if you don't like it's called the parable of the talents, right? Um, it makes it clear that if you don't use your talent, there's negative consequences to that, right? And the word talent in this context is money. So you invest the gifts that you're given. Well, I had an epiphany about 4 or 5 months ago that so the Bible says all good gifts come from above. So even though people will give you gifts, the good ones, so it's like that story. I don't know how true it is, but someone was a Christian and this person wanted to um, uh, she needed groceries and this other person wanted to like mock her, so this other person went to the store and bought her a bunch of groceries and said, see, I bought you groceries. And now what do you believe now? And she said, I believe that my God is so great that even the atheist will bring me groceries. Right? I'm not telling it right, but you get the idea, right? And and I'm not calling people that give me gifts atheists. I'm not saying that. But all good gifts come from above. And if you don't use what you're given, I mean, how would you expect there to be more? Right? So I've been going out of my way to find all the gifts that maybe sat on in the closet and stuff like that. So the reason I'm mentioning that, I had a student who used to give me a Christmas gift every year, right? And this is one of the gifts. This is a jazz family tree. And it was sitting on the ground in the back room. It used to be right here. The reason I took it down is so that my monitor could go on the wall. Now there's no room for it. I took it down. So for as long as I've had the computer in this position, that gift was sitting in the back. And my wife brought it out and I had forgotten all about it. And I'm gonna find somewhere to put it because that's my new philosophy is when people give you gifts. So what started all this was I had food gift cards in my desk drawer that were old. And I'm thinking, that's kind of rude, isn't it? And you know, that thought came into my head, the parable of the talents. How is this any different? Sitting on a restaurant gift card that somebody gave us and not using it. What is that? What is that? That's not good. So then I started applying that to all gifts. Here's here's another gift from a student. He um my pencils were falling apart, and he gave me a pack of three of these. This is the best mechanical pencil I ever used, and it's supposed to be like disposable, but you can refill it, and I have been refilling it. But what my point is I take really, really good care of this disposable pencil because it was a gift to me, and I want to demonstrate that I value that gift. And so we've been doing that was like a life changer. We've been doing that for every gift that comes in, and it really is. It's a life changer when you live like that. And you so now part of it is you have to have a appreciation for the gift. This is what started it is I wanted to have an appreciation for the gifts that come in, whether they be from God directly or via the people in our lives. And I mean every gift, even the ones, so like for example, I have a past student that emailed me he wants to meet while he's back in town. What a wonderful opportunity, and I value him. I think he's probably a doctor by now. I value that he takes his time out of his schedule to come and see me. That's going to be in a few weeks, couple weeks. Um, and yes, I value that. All the every good gift. I never want to be ungrateful for what people have done for me, especially, I thank my nurses every single time, and you know what I mean? I um I thank the nurses every time because the job that they have to do, it's a tedious, repetitive job. I'm talking about the dialysis nurses. I thank them every single time, even though they're getting paid, even though, you know, I just want them to know that I appreciate them, you know? Football says, oh, let me see here. I'm behind. Free says, any new books? Not right now. The most recent book is the Christmas book with 76 Christmas carols in it, two of which I made up. I'm not going to put out a Christmas book without my own carols in it. Actually, I already did that too. Um, but no, I have some things going on that I will share with you next year. But no books coming out. No, not even any sheet music. Fault says God is great. Yes, He is. If I was gonna be cliche, I'd say every day. um, Footfall asks, is that a fishing rod back there by the lamp? Yes, that is my fishing rod. I've got several fishing rods. The reason why it's inside is because the 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 weather in Houston is terrible in the summer, and it does a lot of damage. If I put it in the garage, that it won't run right afterwards. So yes, that's the rod I've been using. Um, it still has the lure on it from my last trip. A Kelly Wiggler. I don't know if you guys know about Kelly Wigglers, but that's supposed to be the thing here in Houston, the Galveston area, Kelly Wigglers. Football says you are a gift to us other trumpet players and music in general. Well, I appreciate you saying so. It's a dangerous thing to think that way about oneself, right? Um, I won't think like that. Um, you know how I see it. You know that passage in the Bible that talks about run the race. I see it as a race, not a race against other people, but I'm going to run the race. And you know how they say, when I was a kid, they taught us, don't run to the finish line, pick a spot behind the finish line and run to that. And that's how I see life in general. I'm doing more and more and more. I'm actually more productive right now. You won't believe it, but it's true. You'll see it when it's time. I'm actually more productive now than I've been in my entire life. It's hard to believe because of the dialysis stuff, right? I'm more productive now than ever. Anyway, I just looked at the time. we're way over time. Um, all right, guys. God bless you. Thank you for hanging out. And oh, saltwater assassin. I've never used any saltwater assassin stuff. Anyway, God bless you. Have a great weekend. If I don't see you before Christmas, have a wonderful Merry Christmas. If you're in the UK, Happy Christmas. Okay, and we'll see you next time. I don't know when that will be. All right. Have a great weekend.